Delighted to say now we are joined by Ireland back row Caelan Doris. He is wearing the new Ireland jersey, which will be worn in the upcoming November internationals against Japan, New Zealand and Argentina over the next month. Canterbury recently launched the new Ireland jersey, which is available for sale at elveries.ie, in-store and canterbury.com. The women's version of the jersey will be worn by the women's team in their upcoming internationals at the RDS next month as well. Caelan, how are you getting on? I'm sure excited to be back in camp and getting ready for this bank of three quite important games for Ireland.
How you doing? Yeah, good. Glad to come into camp yesterday. As you said, pretty exciting block of games. Japan up first, then All Blacks obviously in Argentina. So three very good teams with different threats. But yeah, looking forward to getting stuck in.
Yeah, and looking forward to getting stuck in. I would think as well, Caelan, on the back of a difficult start to 2021. You got that concussion, which meant that you had to miss out in the Six Nations and you had to have kind of 3 months on the sidelines. I'm sure you're just delighted to have that period of your being out behind you now and to be back playing rugby again.
Yeah, definitely. It was pretty challenging period in a way. Obviously, with the Lions at the end of the season and the Six Nations being crucial in wanting to have a crack at that. So it was kind of a big decision in getting fully checked out. But yeah, I'm glad I did. And the medical staff were great and very accommodating and getting me checked out by some of the best people around. So I'm glad to have the full battery of tests and full baselines now. I can always go back and compare in the future if there's worries again or if I get another knock. But yeah, glad to be back anyway. Obviously got a few games towards the end of the season. It was great being back in an Irish jersey for Japan and USA. And then yeah, cracking on now to this season as well. Unfortunately, had a little calf injury at the start of the season. But yeah, got 2 games under my belt there recently, so feeling pretty good.
Yeah, and look, your long-term health is always the most important thing. But was there a frustration, as you mentioned, you're looking at probably a very important end to the season with Leinster, European semi-final coming around against La Rochelle, the Lions tour on the line, that when you know you're going to miss the Six Nations, was there a huge frustration there where you're thinking, right, that's probably my audition for the Lions entirely messed up now?
Yeah, there was a bit of that. I think, yeah, initially it was sort of unknown how long I was going to be out for, and we're kind of in constant communication with a specialist over in Birmingham, and it was sort of play it by ear a little bit. I was doing a return to contact, a graduated return with Hugh Hogan, where we sort of started off maybe 40 or 50% hitting the bag and gradually built it back up to try and increase my threshold around contact. So it was kind of gauging off how I was going with that, and in the end we sort of stayed on the safe side and took a little bit longer time, which meant obviously missing La Rochelle and the rest of the Six Nations. But yeah, no, I'm glad I did it. It was probably the prudent decision. And yeah, I'm feeling good now.
Are you kind of on a personal level a little bit kind of careful about that too? Because your brother picked up a non-rugby concussion when he was in school and had a big impact on, being able to play rugby in school. So you kind of first-hand experience of, watching the effects of concussion within your family.
Yeah, that was probably there in the background a bit. It definitely wasn't at the front of my decision making, and mine was a pretty different set of circumstances in that his was one major event, whereas I had a couple of smaller ones. And then obviously the 2 gone back, my Ireland debut and my European debut at Leinster as well, a few months prior to that. So I had those 2 bad ones, then a couple of more minor ones. So it was different to his, and his was one big event. But yeah, seeing the struggles he had, I probably wanted to get on top of it sooner.
It's the nature of things when you play in the back row at provincial and international level, you're going to get bangs and dings along the way. But I remember back to your debut, and there was so much talk that week because everyone's saying, look, Caelan Doris is getting a chance. This is an audition now at number 8. We'll see what happens if he can take over that shirt from CJ Stander. And then we're 4 or 5 minutes into the game, reasonably innocuous, you get a knee in the head.
Yeah, literally the 4th minute in. Still have very fond memories of that week. The whole lead up, the anthems, everything like that was still class. But yeah, obviously extremely frustrating to go off 4 minutes. And then I missed the next game and then got back for England. I was on the bench against England, and then COVID came. So it was a strange first couple of weeks of international rugby. But yeah, no.
Look, that's the nature of it. You're back now at this point, though, playing a bit of rugby before we get into this international window. I was chatting to Ronan Keller earlier. He was speaking about how important it was just get a couple of games, and particularly the Glasgow game at the weekend, just for him to get some miles into the legs before coming into these 3 games. Similarly, you've left that calf injury now behind you, and I'm sure raring to go after pretty much having most of the first half of the year on the sidelines to probably play as much rugby as you possibly can for the rest of this year.
Definitely, yeah. It's pretty, at the start of the season, setting goals for it. It was a pretty exciting season. Looking forward both with Ireland and in camp and with Leinster. Some of the games we've got are pretty challenging, but pretty exciting as well. Also having family and friends and supporters back makes a massive difference. You appreciate it all the more after the long break with COVID. So yeah, looking forward to getting stuck into all of that.
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be particularly special when these 3 games roll around and now the restrictions around crowds are gone, and particularly for the New Zealand game, I would think in a couple of Saturdays' time, that is going to be rocking, going up against the best team in the world, welcoming them to the Aviva Stadium and having what will feel like a really significant crowd back in the ground again.
Yeah, they do make such a difference. You get such a lift in the dark moments when you're blowing out of all areas. But yeah, no, they definitely give you a lift. And yeah, looking forward to being back in the cauldron and having them cheer us on for sure. Yeah.
We'll all reflect back on the last couple of years after this pandemic comes to an end. But was it weird playing some of those fixtures, like even with a limited crowd during the summer for the international games? I know, just going to report on them, I always found it really strange going into an Aviva Stadium where it felt like a cavern with nobody there. And particularly, I remember Leinster and Sarries the September of 2020 in the very delayed quarterfinal in the Champions Cup. And it was so strange being able to hear everything that the subs for Saracens were shouting at the end of the game. Like, as a player, I imagine that can be far from normal to be going back to having nobody within the ground for a game.
Yeah, it was pretty bizarre. The first few games, you're kind of like, what the hell is going on? Feels like a trial game almost. And then, yeah, we obviously played a season and a half with those circumstances. So you kind of get used to it. And then even just having a couple of thousand, I think we had 1,500 at the Dragons game, the RDS. And even that made such a difference. And then it was slowly ramped up with the 2 Ireland games. So in a way, it was weird not having a full Aviva. But compared to having an empty one, it was so much better.
You're not going to thank me for spotting this during the research ahead of our chat, but I did a quick look back at an interview you did when you were with the Ireland 20s. And you were actually talking about the fact that when you were playing Junior Cup Rugby with Blackrock, one of your heroes is Gary Ringrose. Like, how unusual it must have been going into a Leinster dressing room and eventually an Ireland dressing room with Gary Ringrose when this is the guy you looked up to in school.
I'm not sure I said that. I think I must have been misquoted there. I know, yeah. He was, so when I was playing Junior Cup, he was playing Senior Cup, and he was probably the standout player that year. He was the goal kicker, got all his kicks, I think, and they obviously went on to win. They were underdogs. But yeah, Gary's brother Jack's in my year as well, so I would have kind of known Gary in school. And yeah, no, it's class. Taking a picture of him, he's a great fella, and obviously a top class player as well.
When you made that decision in 2012 to go to Blackrock College from living in rural Mayo, at that stage, were you all in on the idea of becoming a rugby player at that stage?
No. So my brother was actually in King's Hospital for 2 years. My dad had been to Blackrock as well. So my brother moved across to third year in Blackrock. I went into first year, and rugby was obviously quite a big part of it. My brother couldn't play at that stage, but for me it was. Rugby was my main sport. I played Gaelic football and soccer as well growing up in Mayo, but rugby was always on top. So it was a part of it, but the whole idea of boarding school and being up in the big smoke excited me as well. So I don't think it was completely focused on being a professional rugby player. It was the whole education and the experience part of it as well. But yeah, rugby's obviously huge in Blackrock too. So that was a helping hand for sure.
Given that Gaelic football is effectively a religion within Mayo, was there any kind of temptation to get dragged down that direction? Because I think Ballina was the rugby club that would have given you probably the first love for the oval ball.
Yeah, exactly. I played with a smaller Gaelic football team, Newport, which was a combination of a few parishes around me. But yeah, I loved it. Played. It wasn't at the highest standard I played at, and it kind of faded out as I went to Blackrock. Still played the odd time when I went back home for summers. But yeah, rugby was always number one.
Because you effectively then go from school directly into the Leinster Academy. And Brian Driscoll was talking to us back earlier this year about that experience for young players coming in. He said it can actually be quite difficult because you go from being one of the chief players on your school's team, and perhaps really, really important, and then you arrive into a dressing room, which for a lot of young players would have been the case when you were going in at 18 years of age, 19 years of age, which is full of European Cup winners and seasoned internationals. How did you find that transition going from school into what was a dressing room that had already accomplished a lot?
Yeah, it was quite strange. You do have some transitions though. It's not straight in from school. So you've got sub academy for a year. You've got Ireland 20s. You've got Leinster A. So there are little incremental steps as you go up. It's not, you're not fully exposed straight away. But yeah, no, it is strange. Your first year in the academy, being around obviously some of the players you've looked up to your whole life. So that's a bit of a strange transition, training with them, meeting with them, being around them full time. But yeah, you get to know them pretty soon and realize that they're all very good people. So yeah, it was a cool experience.
What about the back row setup then that's here with Ireland? You know, we had the squad named a couple of weeks ago, and you look at players who are going to try and make the breakthrough and take a shirt, and looking at Paul Boyle getting opportunities, Gavin Coombs being rewarded for his form with Munster. It's a very competitive back row to get a place in that team now.
Yeah, it's crazy, really. Even looking at Leinster, there's such quality back rows there, and there's probably limited game time in a way as well. So then you come in here and you've got obviously guys in Munster, Ulster and Connacht as well, who are playing really well week in, week out. So it's definitely going to be a challenge getting into the team, but I think it's one that we'll probably all help each other out with, and the competition is going to drive the standard up. So whatever four make it into the game day 23, we'll all be helping them out as much as we can, I think.
Yeah, because when it comes to that motivation, like iron sharpens iron, as they say. You and Jack Honan are competing for a place both internationally and at a provincial level. Probably in a perfect world, both of you would like to play number 8 on the team. You've got him coming off the back of a Lions tour, which I thought he was so impressive. You got in ahead of him, both with Ireland and provincially, last year as well. I'm sure this is going to help to motivate both of you to get to a higher level.
Yeah, I think so. Whenever you get the opportunity in training or matches as well, obviously, more importantly, you got to perform and you got to put your best out there. Having someone both above you and below you, the academy lads coming up and some of the other lads ahead, yeah, you know that there's no complacency allowed at all, and you've got to be on point each time you're on the pitch. So it definitely does drive the standard.
They're a little bit of further ahead of you in the pack playing in the front row, but we're all intrigued. I think you'll understand about Cian Healy playing at tight head, Andrew Porter going back to loose head, the potential for Porter and Furlong playing in the same team, the potential for Cian Healy wearing a 3 at provincial or international level. This, in theory, if it works out, and like Cian Healy has looked comfortable at tight head so far, adds some huge options both for Leinster and Ireland going forward.
Yeah, they say don't teach an old dog new tricks, but he's proved us wrong on that front. Yeah, his first scrum against the Bulls, I think it was, came on tight head and got a penalty. So yeah, he's obviously showed that he's capable on both sides. He's obviously done a lot on the loose head side over the last 10 plus years and shown that he's world class there, but potentially was excited by the challenge on the other side. He's obviously still an option on both, and probably predominantly the loose head again. But yeah, Ports as well obviously came up playing loose head, moved across to tight, and now he's gone back to loose. So having a little bit of versatility around those areas is probably helpful to the whole squad.
There's a lot of new blood coming through as well, particularly the Ulster batch of players who all got their first caps during the summer. Some of them are still involved in this squad now for the 3 games which are coming up. And 2 of your provincial teammates will potentially win their first caps. And they're in Ireland camp now with Ciaran Frawley and with Dan Sheehan. If I can ask you about Frawley, he's again a guy who can add tremendous versatility because he can play in midfield. His opportunity may come over the next while with Robbie Henshaw's injury, but he can also potentially step in at 10. And if he's going to get picked and stay in this squad, that versatility is going to be pretty key. Yeah,
definitely. He's obviously played 10 for most of his career. Even at 20s, he was a 10. But yeah, now moved to 12. He is quite physical as well. He can be that sort of ball carrying option, crashing her up in midfield. But he's also got the skills to be a second ball player, which is going to benefit him greatly. And yeah, like I said, with the 2 front rows, he's got that bit of versatility as well. He could play 10, 12, 15. So yeah, he's a great option for us.
I'll just ask you, Caelan, about the games that are coming up then, particularly New Zealand. How much do you look forward to pitting yourself up against the reigning rugby championship winners and a team who are back on top of the world rankings again?
Yeah, it's class. All 3 games are very exciting. But yeah, obviously the All Blacks one probably stands out. As you said, the best in the world over the last 15 plus years, even longer. And they've got some quality back rows in particular. So yeah, looking forward to hopefully getting to go up against them and see what we can do. But yeah, in the more immediate future, Japan as well are a quality outfit with very strong back rows as well. We obviously know what they can offer from the summer, scoring some pretty exciting tries, I guess. Not too exciting for us, but for most people, yeah. So looking forward to going up against them.
Well, Caelan's going to be in action against Japan November the 6th, New Zealand coming up on Saturday, November the 13th, and then the series finishes against Argentina at the Aviva Stadium on Sunday, November 21st. He is going to be wearing that new Canterbury jersey, which is on him currently. If you're watching the YouTube version of this chat, it is available currently at elveries.ie in store and at canterbury.com. Caelan, good to see your injuries behind you, and best of luck with the 3 games coming up.
Nice one, thank you.